Hi everyone, welcome to CINEMA914 podcast. My name's Nick.
And I'm Alex.
And we're going to be talking today about the Spider-Man Trilogy from Sam Raimi.
This is our first podcast, and we figured we started off with a really hot topic right now with the new Spider-Man movie coming up, thinking about being a little nostalgic and talking about what came before it, since they're going to be reintroducing it.
Yeah, and with the hype of this new movie coming out, it has the potential to probably be a record-breaking box office hit. I can tell you from experience because for my little brother, for his Christmas gift, I decided to get tickets when they dropped. And when they dropped that Monday morning, I was waiting for probably like 5-6 hours to try and get these tickets. When I went at midnight to get online for the tickets, and once midnight hit, every movie selling platform crashed. Like every website crashed.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And once I was able to get on to AMC, they put me in a queue for probably like an hour and a half. And then finally, when it was my turn to get the tickets, as I'm checking out, the website crashes again and puts me back at the end of the queue. So I immediately went, screw that.
Yep.
I'm just going to get them in the morning. And when I woke up in the morning, I was able to get them for Saturday. But either way, that just shows you how insane this movie is going to be.
And I think, obviously, like it's the next, Marvel big movie. So obviously that's going to bring the masses. But I feel like because of what we know, because of, the Raimi Spider-Man Trilogy and the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movies, because those are all going to be reintroduced, it's like you have all these heaps of people that, love both of them. Because there's people who love those Mark Webb movies.
Right.
And of course there's people who love the Raimi Trilogy, including myself and you. And are fans of the current Spider-Man universe. So it's like, and it was like this with Endgame too.
Absolutely.
This is what it reminds me of.
Endgame,
I couldn't get tickets I still can't get tickets for this movie coming out.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to wait till the second weekend. I'm definitely not seeing an opening weekend because I just can't. It's not even that I don't want to.
Right. I mean, just think about what I had to go through just to get 2 tickets. But I think even with Endgame, it took my college buddies forever to get him. Yeah. And one of my friends, he's completely obsessed with the Marvel Universe. Shout out Gabe. He was able to get tickets somehow for all of us, and we were able to see it opening night, and it was absolutely insane.
Yeah, I did see, because Endgame was so important to me that I did make sure that me and my college buddies were in the room, and we're all on our computers trying to get them. Because I made sure to get them. We didn't see it like opening day, but I think the second or third day we saw it. So we saw it opening weekend, but that was because I was determined I just happened to wait too long.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were lucky to get tickets when we got them.
Yeah.
We had to go outside of probably 30 miles just to go to a different theater to go see it. But yeah, when we went in, the theater was completely packed. Every seat was taken in that theater.
Yep, I believe it. Me too.
Yeah. So when we go into this episode, before we mention anything, we also just want to say that this podcast isn't just going to cover superhero movies and superhero-related TV shows. This is going to cover all different types of cinema, from superhero movies to comedies to thrillers, sci-fi, horror,
so anything really.
So it just so happens that our first episode does fall under Spider-Man just because of the hype of the new movie coming out.
Plus, who doesn't love talking about I could talk about I'm telling you, there's entire sections of the internet dedicated to loving the Raimi trilogy.
Absolutely.
It's just
people are just Tobey holics. They
America's sweetheart, Tobey.
America's sweetheart, Tobey Maguire.
I remember being, when I saw the Amazing Spider-Man and 2 and all of the Raimi movies, each time I saw them in theaters, the theater was packed.
Absolutely.
And that includes any Marvel movie you go to nowadays, with the exception of a few. But I remember, I remember being in the theater like as a 6-year-old and seeing Spider-Man for the first time, like, and because there was no real superhero movies before that. Like, did the X-Men come out yet? Because Nolan's trilogy wasn't until 2005, right? That's when Batman Begins came out.
I think so.
This was 2002, I think. First.
I believe that it was either 2000 or 2002.
Yeah, it's one of those early years. So, and I mean, it's not the first superhero movie to come out. Like, there's the Adam West shit.
Yeah, there's all the superhero movies, but this is like the first time I think superhero movies were like, because like Spider-Man 2 is like the crown jewel of Spider-Man. So, right. I mean, Spider-Man.
It's widely regarded as the best.
Spider-Man is the crown jewel of Marvel.
Yeah,
I mean,
agree.
that was probably
my favorite
the
hero.
most excited character from Stan Lee.
R.I.P. in peace.
R.I.P. Stan Lee. We miss you.
Yeah, we really do.
And it's sad to think that Stan Lee is not going to cameo.
I know.
In this new movie,
unless they I could see them putting
if they CGI him in
or something. Yeah, for sure.
Then
because how are you gonna not pay? This is Spider-Man's his baby.
Yeah, that was his go-to.
So it's like, it's just like everyone knows Stan Lee from him. I mean, he did a lot of them. Spider-Man's like his main. So they would if he's not in it like a clip, they'll pay homage to him in some way. You know what I mean? I feel like they're not gonna leave him out.
Absolutely. And I mean, like,
they shouldn't.
I think that every movie that every live action movie that Spider-Man has done, each of these actors has brought something new to the screen and helped develop the character as a whole.
Yes.
But as far as it goes back, with the Raimi Trilogy, casting Tobey Maguire, they brought a different aspect to it because they didn't go the high school student. They went
like a young adult.
They went with the
man.
young college student.
Yeah.
Doesn't really have popularity and
right.
It's just one of those things.
Yeah. It's and then of course the current Spider-Man movies went the opposite direction, making him a kid, which has its benefits, but also I think its drawbacks. And then, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but Andrew Garfield, because I think he's one of your favorite actors, right?
I do like Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, I love Andrew. I think he's one of the best actors working today. His range is incredible. But despite the contrary, like, I feel like I enjoyed his depiction of Peter Parker because it was this like spiteful kind of yet to grow up sort of coming of age.
He was a wise guy. He was always cracking wise remarks.
Punk, but like, or like the kid in the back of the class, just people ignore. Like, he's not necessarily getting picked on, because he actually saved the kid in the first scene of the first movie.
Right.
Flash was picking on him, so he wasn't the one getting picked on. He's just like kind of like Tom Holland's Spider-Man. He's just the background kids.
Right.
Not really getting thrown in lockers. He's just the kids that no one really pays attention to.
Right, and with Raimi, he went the opposite way. He went with this graduating senior going into college, nerd that did get picked on by Flash Thompson, and you see that in like the first few minutes of the film, and so going into that first movie, there were a lot of things that you could pick up on like right away, and the kind of person that Tobey was portraying,
right?
And I mean, just in general, that cast from the first movie,
it's kind of like Nolan's Batman, where like the cast is just perfect. Every character plays their part
with Kirsten Dunst,
even her,
and James Franco,
yep,
Willem Dafoe.
I mean,
incredible. I'm so happy that they're bringing him back for the new movie. But Willem Dafoe, his range too. He played the perfect Norman Osborn.
Of course.
So I mean, like, before we go into like the actors, actors' portrayal and things, I think it's good that we talk about your thoughts, my thoughts on the first film.
Yeah.
Overall, like, the kind of purpose, the message that the film is trying to send. Because for me, I would say that the message that they were trying to portray, they're giving you an introduction to the character, because normally, like, with those first films, you have to develop the character, you have to show character development throughout the movie. So I believe that that message was trying to show him how, you know, you have to be responsible for your actions.
The first Spider-Man movie you're talking
about? Yeah, like how you have to,
100%.
you know, this world isn't going to come easy to you. You know, he got hit, you know, when he got the bite, and, you know, when he started developing supernatural abilities, and, you know, when he first started going out, you know, he realized, like, it's hard to be a hero. And, you know, when
that's the point.
Yeah, when Uncle Ben gave him that message, you know, with great power comes great responsibility, that kind of was the message of the film.
Of course. It should be the message of every good Spider-Man picture depicts that. It's that a hero, and actually it's best, in my opinion, it's best exemplified by Aunt May in the second movie, when she gives him that absolutely heart-wrenching speech about when he's just kind of quit, but he's not sure if he's gonna, you know what I'm talking about?
When he starts losing his
powers because, like, you know, it's like his subconscious is telling him that being Spider-Man is ruining Peter Parker. So giving Spider-Man up would be the logical decision, but then he has that, like, inner dream sequence of Uncle Ben where he's just, like, asking him to take his hand, which basically is him asking him to be Spider-Man, because that's the part of Uncle Ben is the catalyst for Spider-Man.
Right.
And his developing character.
And that scene, you know, after he is going to collect his money from the wrestling match, you kind of see, like, that's prior to the message that Ben was giving him. Yep. You know, it shows his immaturity, you know, and you know, his retaliation to when the guy told him that's not my problem. And then when he lets the guy go, ultimately killing Ben, you know, he's like, why didn't you stop him? And he's like, I forgot the part where that's my problem.
Which is like a meme in and of itself. That's one of the best lines.
Exactly.
But it just, honestly, you know, that's the beauty of that movie, is what he had to lose, unfortunately, to learn the hard way. Because, like, what would you do if you got spider powers? Like, he was what, 17, 18?
You know, he was a graduating senior from high school.
You'd want to get revenge and do things you couldn't do before. So it's like, it's not unreasonable for him to, you know, obviously that's his origin in the comics. It's, like, portrayed perfectly on screen. But even if it wasn't a comic-based movie, like, it would kind of, it showed him being immature. It showed him growing. And again, that second picture when Aunt May's giving him that speech and she's like, just hold on, like, a little bit longer, where even though it's hard, you have to endure. It's like, that's what heroes do. That's the whole point. You have to keep getting back up. Think about, I know I keep bringing up Nolan, but it's a good, when in Dark Knight, when he says, when Christian Bale is like, people are dying, what would you have them do? And Alfred's like, endure. You can do what they can. Batman can be what the average person isn't, like the hero that everyone can aspire to be.
Exactly.
Same thing in Spider-Man.
It's like overcoming adversity, you know, when stuff is pushing you down and you feel like there's no way out. And this goes for pretty much all things in life. You know, that life isn't easy and things are going to hit you pretty hard. So it's all about how you get back up, and if you're gonna get back up as the same person, why get up at all?
Yeah.
You know, but if you have that introspection and you realize, like, okay, I know what I need to do now, then you're gonna come out stronger. And that's how Ben Parker's death in the first movie brought out Tobey to end up being Spider-Man and taking on Spider-Man's responsibilities.
Yeah, I think that's every superhero movie. At its core, it's telling you to get back up after falling.
Right.
Which is basically just overcoming adversity, and everyone has to do that. Like, you don't have to be Batman or Spider-Man, Superman to do that. Like, your everyday struggles are synonymous with those. And so every great superhero movie focuses on that. There's some out there that just don't really hit that. They don't stick the landing when it comes to it. But I feel like movies like this really did. And the first Spider-Man's a little campy. You know, it's a little corny. It's a little, like, overly dramatic. But it's kind of like, that's kind of part of its charm. Like, when you look back at these movies, it's like, yeah, Tobey Maguire's kind of a sweetheart. He's a little too innocent. He's not quipping as much, allegedly, even though he does in certain scenes. It's just part of its charm. Like, it's a beautiful. It's supposed to be a tender kind of take on Spider-Man. Because Tobey Maguire's, he's not that intimidating. Let's face it. He's not as intimidating as Andrew Garfield could be, or like some other big list actors.
Tobey Maguire just has that soft look to him.
He has good dramatic scenes when he has to yell and raise his voice and stuff, but he's not the most intimidating guy in the room. But you know, I still like it. Like, I don't know.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, let's dive into the movie a little bit. Like, give me like your thoughts on the movie and like what you liked about the movie. Yeah, what you liked about the movie, and you know, what you think you would improve on in the movie.
What I improve on? Well, I think the casting is damn near perfect. I think, you know, the final scene where he like gets brutally like beat up by the goblin. Like, I think that's that didn't have to be there. Like, that was pretty, same thing within the second. I know we'll get to the second. Sam Raimi just has that horror mindset when he's making films, and he has to give that like brutal like horror. Because think about it, it's in like this warehouse. It's creepy. There's bats flying around. Like, it's overgrown. It's like pure Sam Raimi, like his style, right? I love Cliff Robertson as Ben Parker. He's probably the best performance in the movie. I mean, Willem Dafoe's it's a close tie between the two for me, because Willem Dafoe, I mean, he was born. I would be pissed off if he didn't play that.
Yeah,
obviously I didn't know at the time, but you know, it's like and I don't mean to
no, go ahead.
But probably, and not to downplay anything I just said, but J.K. Simmons is
J.K. Simmons. I could go
Jonah.
On
like
he's
probably, aside from Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon, he's probably the most perfect choice for a comic book character.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Gary Oldman was Commissioner Gordon,
and we will dive into the Dark Knight trilogy.
We'll do that another episode.
We'll do that in another episode, just because of that significance and that actor choosing all those actors. There's so much to talk about there. But with J.K. Simmons, I mean,
absolutely perfect.
His range too, also is insane. You know,
seen Whiplash?
Yeah, Whiplash is probably one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
his portrayal in that is just absolutely.
When I watch that movie, it's like J. Jonah Jameson if he was like foul mouthed, really much of a dick. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, because he's brutal in that movie. But back to Simmons.
Simmons in that just as J. Jonah, it was perfect. But with Willem Dafoe, I think he kind of stole the show for me in the first movie. I
understand that.
Just because he was the perfect villain, you know, he has this maniacal, you know, smile to him, and he played Norman Osborn, because Norman Osborn is a sophisticated leader of a whole corporation, and you know, that whole part of him when after he injected himself with the serum, you know, when he started seeing his you know, his reflection was starting to talk to him, that to me was more exciting than his actual acting as Norman.
When he's in his house.
When he's in the house, and the reflection is talking to him, because that's the maniacal part to him.
And then when he's in Thanksgiving dinner, and that like disgusting, like, you know, shady, like just he's like creepy, he's perverted, almost like he says terrible things. Like, that's when it really like starts to overtake him. And it's great to see him kind of fall down that abyss of sanity. But you had said something about when he's in the house and he's like talking to himself. He's creepier outside of the mask. Because that mask, let's face it, you can see his mouth moving. It really doesn't hold up. That's one of the things that just doesn't hold up to me. It's just because all the other costumes are pretty good. Like Doc Ock's, like his puppeteered tentacles. Like, you know they did that. They, like puppets. Like those were really moving. Those weren't CGI, which is one of the best things about this trilogy. There's a lot of practical, and all early 2000s super movies. There's a lot of practical stunts. There's not a lot of CGI. Compare that to the Marvel movies, especially the most recent ones. They're just all CGI.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're making billions of dollars, you can afford the CGI.
But think about it; they gotta pump those movies out like sometimes more than once a year. So like those CGI teams, like, I mean, they probably use the same model for each movie, but like the airport scene in Civil War, like that's all, for example, that's all CGI. Right. Like everything in the background, so that's same thing with the battle on Titan, Infinity War. Like that's all CGI. Like there's nothing practical about it. Right.
I mean, and like I said, they have the money to do it, and you know, they execute it perfectly. Yeah. Whereas, you know, I you know this, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. Yeah. And if you couldn't tell. But
I just looked at his posters.
yeah, my posters everywhere, my flags everywhere. But with Game of Thrones, you know, as they progressed and as they brought in more net worth and brought in millions of dollars, billions of dollars each time they dropped a season. What was disappointing to see with the show was that in the final season, there was a couple episodes. I'm not going to give too much away for people out there who want to see it, but there's a couple episodes in the final season that they had the opportunity that they've been building up all throughout the entire series. They've been building up to this point, and when the time for that to happen, the CGI just wasn't there. The lighting was way off, and you know, that was so disappointing to all of us Game of Thrones fans, because we want to see what you've been building this entire show, and you have the money to produce the CGI needed, and you just fail miserably. And that you, as fans of movies and of TV shows with CGI in it, you know, you got to execute that perfectly, because if you don't, you get bashed by your entire fan base if you don't execute
they
perfectly.
can tell, they can see right through that shit, you know, because it's, again, like these early 2000s movies like The Dark Knight, like that truck flip, that's practical stunt, like,
Right.
and CGI is a wonderful thing. It really brings cinema into this next generation. Like Infinity War, like Thanos' CGI is ridiculous. Like, you see the hairs on his head,
Right.
or like when you see his hand, you can see the hairs on his hand. I mean, the detail is incredible. But with like the Spider-Man trilogy, with Raimi's trilogy, or the Dark Knight trilogy, or anything early mid 2000s, it's like when you use CGI sparingly and you balance it with practical stunts, I mean, it's just better. Like, let's just face it. Like, I just saw The Eternals. It's the last movie I saw in theaters, and it's all CGI. It has to be, because they're basically gods in the movie.
Right.
But it's just like, you don't see practical stunts that much anymore. You just don't. Like, I think Nolan still tries to be as practical as he can, because he's incredible. But I just think that's one of the things I love about this trilogy, this movie specifically, the first Spider-Man movie, because it perfectly blends CGI with practical stunts. It makes for the best experience, I think. And that goes for any movie, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, yeah, you definitely do see the CGI, you know, when you're looking at the spider, when it bites him.
Right, like those things are so small. Like, think about it. It's not over the whole shot, or the whole frame isn't totally CGI. That's just like one little thing. That's probably a real wall that spider, you know, that they're filming, and they put the CGI of the spider coming down. That's probably real. Right. In the lighting, put it right under a light, because I know the scene you're talking about.
And also the other scene when he develops the grip on his hands of the bunch of spider legs. You can tell that that's CGI.
Of course, yeah.
But like you said, a lot of it's not, you know, when you look into it. But I do have to ask you this, because Raimi's trilogy did one thing that kind of went against the comics, and the other two adaptations of Spider-Man did not have it.
Right.
How did you feel about the biological webs?
Okay, so it kind of depends on who you're asking. If you're asking 6-year-old, 10-year-old Alex, I didn't give a fuck. It didn't matter to me, because I didn't know any better.
Right.
I just didn't. Yeah. I didn't think that he made his web shooters at the time. If you ask me now, being that I've read comics and I've seen and I understand like what it really is, like in every other Spider-Man media you see him using mechanical web shooters, I don't mind. I again, like, it just like. It just didn't. It doesn't ruin it. It doesn't bother me.
I think it was set up. It was set up more that way because they wanted to show you the creation of his famous hand gesture that shoots out the webs.
That's a good point.
I feel like that's the reason why they went that route, was because they wanted to show the origin of him and using that hand gesture, because there's probably a bunch of people out there who asked Stan Lee, why does his hand do this?
Right.
And I mean, it is the symbol for love.
That's true.
But and that is a big, you know, topic. Well, that's a big, you know, thing in the movies is the love that he has for you know, not just his family, but for the people and citizens of New York.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think they did that just to show how he came to use that hand gesture. You can see. I think it was more for a comic relief too.
It was
when you would have Tobey Maguire at the top of a building giving a thumbs up.
Fly.
Yeah.
And he even says,
Shazam. He says Shazam.
It's funny. I'm gonna sidetrack just for a second.
Go for it.
They drop a lot of Marvel names in this Spider-Man trilogy. Like in the first Spider-Man trilogy, the first Spider-Man movie in Raimi's trilogy, Jonah mentions Eddie Brock. He's like, or Robbie mentions it. He's like, yeah, Jonah's been on it for weeks. Like, and most people wouldn't catch that, but that's a direct reference. They set that up in the third movie ultimately, or in I don't know if it's 2 or 3, but one of Jonah's like his little, the people that work for him, whatever. One of them says like when they're trying to name Doc Ock, and he's like Doctor Strange.
Yes,
and he's like, that's pretty good,
but it's taken. Yeah.
That's, and I think in the third one they do. What do they do in the third one?
Well, Gwen Stacy is also introduced in the third one.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like the fact that they name drop other characters in the Marvel universe before a cinematic universe was a thing.
Yeah.
This is just a Spider-Man universe.
I mean, that cinematic universe didn't pick up until Iron Man came out.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's just like these are like Easter eggs that aren't going to lead to anything probably. Or he says Shazam in the first one, right?
Yeah, he says Shazam.
Isn't that a DC character?
That's a DC character.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like it's fun to like hear those now.
Which is a great film, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Shazam's a great film.
It's just fun to hear those now because it's like, I know that wasn't setting something up specifically, but it's just fun to include it. They didn't have to say that like in the screenplay.
Right.
Anyway, going back to the first movie again, and I know we mentioned Jonah already, but like his scenes are like genuinely funny. Like like sometimes when humor you see it, it's entertaining. You're not gonna like haha. You're gonna gut bustingly laugh.
Right.
But you're just like like that's cute. Like that's like.
Yeah, it's quirky. It's quirky.
You're not gonna audibly react. You're just gonna like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And like,
but his scenes, dude, like they're genuinely like I still laugh like when I hear him, like when he's like, he's like, Parker, where were you? I needed you 5 minutes ago. Where were you? Photographing squirrels? Fired. And then he's like, oh wait, you're on fire. I need you for a second.
Yeah.
Like that's just funny to me, and he's so good. Like he's just so good. Even if you're reading the comics, some people might be reading Jonah's lines and be like, I hear J.K. Simmons' voice.
Right, and his scenes throughout this trilogy were always just comical, and especially for me, I think. When we dive into the second movie a little more, I think the funniest scene that I've seen from him in all the Spider-Man movies, and I'm glad that he's coming back for the new movie.
Yeah.
But I think the funniest scene for me was when he gets the suit and he throws on the suit.
Yeah, it's
and
a deleted scene, dude. Yeah, like, that's not in the regular version. But yeah, I know.
He jumps onto the table with the cigar in his mouth.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Oh man,
there's a lot of this, and that's another thing. Like, obviously every movie needs comic relief and funny bits sporadically placed, but I feel like these Spider-Man movies have almost the perfect amount of comic relief. Like the first one, I mean, all of them are pretty dramatic.
Right.
At the core, they're supposed to be.
They're supposed to be.
The what's his name? He's in all the Evil Dead movies, and he's the wrestler announcer in the first one. What's his name? It's on the tip of my tongue. He's a colleague of Raimi. Like they were kids or something. They were friends when they were younger.
I know who you're talking about.
He was going to become Mysterio in the fourth.
Yes.
Fifth,
yeah, they prepped
playing
him up.
Raimi.
Yeah,
he was set up to be that. But he just appears in each one as a different guy. I forget his name, but you know who I'm talking about. Let me look him up real quick.
Yeah, just take a second to look him up while I talk about some stuff. So. Yeah, to me, in the first movie, another character that brought that comic relief was Bonesaw.
Oh yeah, was that Randy Savage?
Yeah. And Bonesaw, he comes in and when he's just trying to make some money, and he has his first homemade costume, and it's a little ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, you got my name wrong. Get out of there, you moron.
When he goes. Yeah, he's like, "You're mine." he's like, 3 more minutes of playtime.
Yeah,
that was great.
He's outrageous. He's supposed to be a little outrageous, and, ridiculous. But Yeah, and he is definitely funny. The guy who I'm looking up right now, he's another comic relief. Who else is? I mean, a lot of the side characters have comic relief, like Harry's butler, I think, has one. Rosemary Harris and May has them. They all have. Fuck,
Absolutely.
I can't find this. Where the
But I think that the things that I liked in the first film, like I said, was mainly like the character development out of Peter.
Yeah.
You see the change in Harry with James Franco
Right.
after his father dies, like, which to me, they went a different way about that too. Like, they didn't have to kill off, Green Goblin, but they did.
Yeah.
And the way that they did it was just so well done.
Oh, it's perfect.
It shows how powerful Peter Parker's spider sense is.
Right.
And he was able to sense, the glider pull out the daggers, and that they went about that a great way too. And it showed that Spider-Man's identity isn't supposed to be known, and so they kind of had to kill off Green Goblin in that aspect, because Norman Osborn figured out who Spider-Man was because Peter's mask rips. And it seems like all of Raimi's trilogy, Peter Parker's mask rips somehow, and his identity is shown to everyone.
It's a pretty thin suit.
And like even if you look at Spider-Man 2, which we'll dive into, like on the subway scene, when the train is going top speed.
When he stopped the train.
When he stopped the train, he takes his mask off.
Oh, right.
And
He always gets unmasked.
He gets unmasked always.
Amazing Spider-Man movies, he gets unmasked too.
Which is kind of ridiculous because Spider-Man's identity is always supposed to remain unknown.
Right.
That's what gives him power over the city, because that seems like if everyone were to, all the villains at least, were to know Spider-Man's identity, then they would just go after his loved ones, and he'd be constantly in compromise.
That's why you got to wear the mask.
Yeah, he'll always have that internal conflict. Do I save my loved ones or do I save the city?
Again, I keep apologizing, but I'm gonna refer to the Dark Knight trilogy again, because there's another good scene where in the third one, it Rises, when he saves John Blake, who's basically Robin. He saves him at the end when he first comes back to Gotham.
Also, another great actor, Joseph Gordon.
Oh yeah, I love him. Don John.
He's
the fucking man. There's a scene where when he saves him, he's like, "If you're working alone, wear a mask." And he's like, John Blake's like, "I'm not afraid to stand up to these guys." And Bale's like, "The mask isn't for you. It's to protect the people you care about." And he learned that the hard way, didn't he? At some point in the franchise, I'm pretty sure. I believe
so. Yeah.
Like he didn't cover his whatever. It's just like it's part of being that hero, that vigilante sort of. Even though if you're working with, like, Spider-Man works with the cops, he's not really a vigilante, but like anyone who's exacting that kind of justice in the world needs to hide
in the words of J. Jonah Jameson, he's a masked menace. But
a menace.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Jay.
Masked menace.
Yes.
That's one of the things. Like you say that over and over again. It kind of just gets funnier. Like the more I say it, he's a masked menace. Like in Jonah's voice.
Yeah. Every time I hear that, I can't help but to think of J.K. Simmons saying.
You know how you said when Norman dies, it's a perfect scene. It's also good because Spider-Man didn't have to kill him. Like, he wasn't going to be stopped unless he was brought to jail or he was killed he died, because the Goblin was taking over. Even when he tried to, appeal to Peter and try to beg for forgiveness and mercy, the Goblin menace was right there under his skin.
Absolutely,
it's there. It was there the whole time, and it just shows you that he was never going to stop being that. He was pure evil at that point, and he was going to kill Spider-Man. And Spider-Man didn't have to kill him; he had to watch him die and see the brutality of his death, which was brutal. It was. But yeah, because Spider-Man doesn't kill. I mean, he most superheroes shouldn't, but like Spider-Man, he's a young guy. I feel like it would, because to me, Spider-Man has to be really likable in any kind of story you put him in, whether it's a video game like Spider-Man PS4 or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whatever it is. You have to make that Peter Parker likable, and even more likable Spider-Man, because if he's not likable, which I think was the problem with Andrew Garfield. He comes across as like he has to be charming, he has to be sincere, he has to be very youthful in a way. Like he has to feel like this is a young guy. Like even in Spider-Man PS4, I don't know, did you play that game?
Yeah, I did play the game.
It's a great game, by the way. We could do a whole episode on that
too.
Yeah. He's 8 years into being Spider-Man, but But so he knows what he can do. He's very confident, but he's also very youthful. Like he quips. You know, he's still a kid. He's only like 23. He still loses people, and he doesn't know how to handle certain situations. Like,
which kind of brings me back. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
It brings me back to the point of this first film. This is his first year as Spider-Man, so he has to learn how to develop what his abilities are, what he can do, what he can't do. Yeah. And you see that throughout the movie. Like sometimes he does things that doesn't work out. Yeah. And you know, he's continuously trying to learn, which is what I'm excited to see in the new movie, because it's, you know, they're gonna bring back, which we all believe that he's coming back. Yeah. They're gonna bring him back, and you know, they're gonna bring his world into it, and who knows how many years further down the line he is. So maybe he is 8-10 plus years down the line. You know, they're probably going to age him up a bit. They're probably going to give him a beard or something.
Yeah, they should. Maguire with a beard?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. They're probably going to bring him out with a beard, and it's going to show you how much different he's going to be, like you know, a father figure to Tom Holland. I mean, you know, he's going to show Tom Holland, you know, what it takes to be, you know, a Spider-Man, and what his abilities. We're going to see his abilities, you know, far more matured now, I believe. You know,
yeah, I agree. Now I think they should. That's the dynamic they should give him. Right. And same thing. I don't know about Garfield. I don't know what's going to happen, because he's also, again, even though this was years ago, he was still a kid too.
I feel like you've seen the trailer for No Way Home.
No Way Home. Yeah.
When Mary Jane, played by Zendaya, when she's falling off, I think that it's going to be Garfield, because he needs to redeem himself from the second Spider-Man.
That's a good point, dude.
You know, I feel like it's for him to come into this movie. I think it's all going to be about redemption.
Yeah, because Spider-Man's going to make this colossal mistake. Even though I don't believe that's Strange, because Strange would not mess with. He's supposed to be the best.
I believe it's.
You think it is him?
I don't believe that it's Doctor Strange. I believe that it's Mephisto.
Not do that. Yeah, I think
believe
so
it's
too.
Mephisto.
It could also be Kang or someone.
Because I mean,
with it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, like, think about Infinity War and Endgame, where, you know, he is looking at the infinite timelines. He looked over 14 million timelines or whatever it was, and he knew that only one worked, and he knew that, you know. We're not going to give away any spoilers, because everyone's probably seen Endgame by now. He knew that Tony had to sacrifice himself in order to save the universe. And why would he, for a kid, alter the timeline?
And also, Strange was willing to let himself die because he knew that, all right, you guys will use the stones later, and you'll bring us back 5 years later, which to them will feel like 5 hours or something. Right. And so the fact that he was willing to, like, all right, I'm going to die along with half the Earth's heroes and the rest of the universe's population. He's willing to do that, even in Infinity War, before he knew that Stark was imperative to the final battle. He even said to Tony, he's like, if it comes to saving the Time Stone, I would let you and Peter die, like, no hesitation.
Which brings to me the question.
So that's why he wouldn't do it. That's why I think it's someone else. But go ahead.
Which brings me to question, and this is a theory that I'm thinking about. What if Doctor Strange chose the people that would disappear, the people that wouldn't disappear? You know, like, he looked at the timeline and realized this person is imperative. He needs these things, these people to disappear in order for this reality to sink in for him. Wow. That he needs to be the ultimate sacrifice.
Could be.
So think about it. I mean, like, he sacrifices himself. He sacrifices Spider-Man, who is like this, you know, it's like his protege.
Sort of, without Tony here, especially.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, this kid that I've been looking after, he's gone now. Yeah. It's probably like a reality check for him.
Yeah, and that's because.
I mean, think about it. Think about it. Like, Rocket was needed with Thor to get the new hammer, and Stormbreaker. Right. You know, I feel like Rocket would have been less inclined to help if Groot wasn't the one to disappear. So I feel like maybe Doctor Strange.
So you think he pick and chose?
Like, maybe he was able to pick and choose.
But how would he know that? Like, how would he know the dynamic of like Groot and Rocket, for example.
That's the thing. It's just a,
it's
a theory that I'm thinking about.
I think it's an interesting theory.
And it's something that maybe we could discuss in a different podcast.
Yeah, when the movie comes out, we will see it
in a different episode. Yeah, exactly. We'll see it in a different episode.
We had mentioned, I mentioned that, without Tony gone, that's why Strange is sort of he's not going to be happy. It's going to be strange.
Yeah.
One of the things I really dislike about this, the MCU Spider-Man, is that Ben is hardly mentioned. Like, there's the briefcase in No Far From Home, but that gets destroyed when he's fighting Mysterio. And, like, Aunt May's, like, totally fine with him being Spider-Man. Like, she doesn't, like, it just, I feel like, and this goes back to what you were saying about Tobey Maguire being, like, a father figure to Holland. I hope that, because Tony's relationship to Holland was definitely a father figure-ish. That's why it's so gut-wrenching when Spider-Man disappeared in Infinity War. That was probably the most heartbreaking one aside from I think there's a needed, like, father figure to Peter right now, because, like,
what better,
which is what I'm saying, who better do it than Tobey?
Right. What better father
how much
figure
development Tobey got. Yeah, I think out of all the MCU characters, Thor, aside from, like, Tony and Cap, I think Thor got the most development out of all of them, because
absolutely
everything happened in Infinity War with taking the Dying Star, then sacrificing his world and Asgard in Ragnarok, and then killing Thanos but not killing him, like hitting him but not
especially
killing
with,
him.
like, Loki dying.
He went through crazy development, and he's going to continue to get it because he's getting another Thor movie
exactly
with the Guardians.
And I think that with Tom Holland's Spider-Man in No Way Home, he needs someone to help him develop, have some character development, learn what the ultimate sacrifices Spider-Man needs to give.
Yeah.
And who better to do that? Who better to be a father figure than a Spider-Man, an older Spider-Man who has experience in all of that.
He went through Uncle Ben. He the whole thing with Mary Jane, like, forgiving himself for going down that dark path. Like, he's gone. He's
especially with Harry's death.
Harry's death
in the third movie.
Yeah, but he's forgiving the Sandman for killing Uncle Ben, like forgiving Uncle Ben's killer that he thought he killed. Like, these are all. In other words, he's a man. Because think about it. When Peter, he was fighting in the battle for the universe, but he was not. With the exception of saving Iron Man in Endgame, he really didn't play a huge part in any of the movies. I mean, Infinity War, Endgame. He was important for what scenes that he was in.
Right.
But, like, he wasn't, as a kid, he wasn't going to be the one to sacrifice himself. He wasn't going to be the one to face Thanos with no one else, like Cap did, like, face off his entire army. Like, he's not a man. He's not that developed hero yet that he's going to be.
I mean, think about it.
And I think that's what Tobey's going to bring to
absolutely. I mean, think about it. Tom Holland's Spider-Man is still developing. I mean, we didn't see him really use or get control of his spider sense until Far From Home.
Exactly.
Which was an incredible scene. That scene was great.
That nightmare scene that he brought him through.
And him having to go through that and stop the bots and then grab the gun. And
that's an interesting theory, that's an interesting take on spider sense. Like, not because it was like when Tobey got it or when Andrew got it. Remember in the subway? When he's taking the subway home in Amazing Spider-Man, and it just kind of kicks in and like instinctively he just like jumps up when someone's about to touch him or something. It's like Peter had to kind of form his spider sense. Like, it was there, like in Endgame. I mean, in Infinity War when he's on the bus, or in Civil War when the shield is coming and he dodges it.
Right.
Like, it's there, but he hasn't, like, it's not at its full potential yet. That's cool to me. I kind of like that, what they did with spider sense.
It just shows that he needs more development, and I believe that Tobey is going to be that influence for him. I
really hope so.
I think Andrew, like I said, Andrew's Spider-Man is definitely going to be more of like a redemption kind of thing.
And maybe like a friend, like he'll give him some advice too.
He'll give him some advice.
He did go through some development too.
Absolutely, with the loss of Gwen.
I think Tobey being also the first to do it, he'll in other words, if they're gonna bring Tobey Maguire, if they're gonna bring Doc Ock, the best Spider-Man characters, if they're gonna bring them back, they better use them and make their inclusion important.
Absolutely.
And like memorably important. You know what I mean? Because like you're not messing with, but you're bringing back a very beloved franchise. the Mark Webb Spider-Man's not so much, but even so, like people still enjoy Garfield's take. So if you're gonna bring back these two, like these things have a legacy, like especially Raimi's, that left behind a crazy legacy for like the bar, that superhero movie, what they could be. Like then you see what Nolan did like a few years later, like what he was able to accomplish with the superhero genre.
Right.
That started with Raimi, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
So you gotta use it right. You cannot fuck this up. Because if you fuck this up, people won't forgive the MCU. Think about it.
Absolutely. I think
people hold Raimi's. I'm sorry, I don't mean.
No. Go ahead.
Raimi's trilogy is one of those things. It's like it's timeless. The fact that you ever seen those Tobey Maguire things on YouTube?
Yeah. Those are great.
Things are ridiculous.
Those are so good.
It's hilarious. Like that's what I mean. Like there's still like that movie is people that whole Tobey Maguire thing. Like people are doing that with movies that are over 10 years old.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like this is a very like this. They cannot mess this up.
No.
So, and we're gonna get into the Spider-Man 2 in a minute or so. But like again, if you're like he's in the trailers, like you see him most out of all the villains. Like Elektra's in it, Sandman, they're all there. But you see Doc Ock the most because that's what people are gonna love the most. This is one of the best villains that Spider-Man's faced up. So again, like just don't mess it up. Don't MCU-ify it. If that makes any sense.
No, it does. It makes total sense. But I'm really excited for Willem Dafoe's return. I want to see.
Me too.
What kind of stuff they bring to the table, because the last time we saw him. Obviously, we heard his voice in Spider-Man 2, but he played such a crucial part in Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
Especially, I want to go back to his death. Because that brings out the character development in Harry. I mean, you think about it, when he finds out that his dad died at the hands of Spider-Man, we go back to Willem's voice in their mansion, and when he throws the dagger at the mirror,
he's trying to kill.
It introduces to Harry what his father was and what his father was trying to do, and that hatred for Spider-Man, that brings out the origin of Hobgoblin. And brings out Harry, and it's nice to see that character development and the way that it was portrayed from James Franco. So I'm interested to see what type of Green Goblin that they bring back with Willem's character.
Yeah, because it could either be the vengeful, brutal Goblin that we were left with, because he never really, again, based on what his final act was. Right before he died, he was gonna kill Spider-Man. Like even after trying to be like, oh, I'm your uncle father to you, you're like a son to me, like trying to fuck with his mind. It's like he could be just really evil and just really spiteful, or he could be like a changed man. Like,
think about it. The quick few seconds before Norman died in that first movie, he sort of felt bad for doing the things that he did, and he felt awful for the things that he made Peter go through. And the last words that he says is, "Don't tell Harry." And ultimately, that menacing part of Goblin was still in the mansion in the mirror. And, that also shows that, like, no matter what, Harry was going to hate Spider-Man. And for that part of him saying, "Don't tell Harry," that caused a conflict. It showed a conflict with Tobey, because he has to keep that secret that he's Spider-Man, because Harry knows that Spider-Man killed his father, so to say. So he has to keep that hidden, which was a hard battle for him to go through in the second Spider-Man. But I'm interested to see like which kind of Goblin that they bring to this movie.
But then you see Harry, and I agree with you 100%. But then at the end of Spider-Man 3, when Harry forgives Peter, basically, which is like kind of like a little Avengers kind of moment, like superheroes teaming up. Back in 2007, it's like seeing Harry because that movie's all about forgiveness, in my opinion.
And I mean, throughout, sorry to cut you off, but throughout the second film, the second Spider-Man, that hatred is just manifesting in Harry, and that hatred begins to grow, which obviously brings out the origin, like I said, of Hobgoblin, and throughout the second film, we don't get Hobgoblin really. We just get we see the buildup, and we see that conflict within Harry, and once he finds out that Peter is Spider-Man, you see him like drop the dagger that he was going to use to kill him, and he's so shocked and taken back that he has that internal battle, which ultimately he loses in the third film,
but then gets back,
gains back,
which is it's a great arc,
which is good, which is an interesting close to the trilogy. Because I mean, like, we didn't really talk too much yet about the second film, so I'm going to ask you, coming now, what your thoughts were throughout the second film. How that character development of Harry, and the introduction of Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, and I'm interested to see that as well. What kind of Doc Ock they're bringing back? Are they bringing back the Doc Ock at the end of the second film when he sacrifices himself to stop the manifested son, the remade son, the manufactured killing machine, so to say? Do we bring that Doc Ock back, or is it going to be right when the power in the back of his spine was destroyed? Do they bring that one back? But before we dive into that, give me your thoughts about the second film.
Second film, the best of the three by far.
Absolutely. I remember seeing that in theaters.
Me too.
I was with my parents and my grandparents, and we were visiting them. We were going to Missouri to visit them, and it was one of those days. It was a crappy day. We were at the park, and it just started pouring. So it shows how powerful this film was for me to remember these certain details, from a young age. I had way too much ice cream, and I felt so sick, but I still wanted to go see this movie, and I ended up falling in love with it. But give me your thoughts on that.
My dad was like, "I'm gonna take off work today, and I'm gonna take you out of school." I was 7 or 8 at the time, and he's like, "We're gonna go see this together," because he knew how much I loved it.
Right.
And we saw it, and I'll never forget it. And that's another. And not just that it's a good memory, but also because it's a good movie. I remember my dad saying, like, that was a really good movie. And for my dad, who was an old timer, he was, for him to say that about a superhero movie is like pretty. It's pretty meaningful in my opinion. But yeah, the second movie is easily my favorite. I think Raimi just took everything up a notch. Like everything that worked about the first movie, he brought that up. Like the cinematography is better. The screenplay is a little bit more fleshed out. Like the characters are just so good. Like every character has an arc, and they're all important. You know what I mean? And like it's funnier. The funnier scenes are funnier. Like the Jonah scenes are incredible. Like Tobey Maguire's and first of all, I said the third movie is a lot about forgiveness, which it is. I think the second movie is all about
development. I think.
Yeah, it's all about like coming into, because like again, this is the movie where Peter gets that like, should I be Spider-Man? Should I not be Spider-Man?
He has that.
And a lot of good superhero movies have that. Should I do it? Should I not do it? This movie just kicks Peter Parker's ass. Like his life sucks. His girlfriend doesn't want anything to do with him. Eventually, Aunt May doesn't want anything to do with him. His friends hate him. Like he loses his job. Like that he can't be Spider-Man. Like his life sucks. There's that great shot when he gives up the suit and he's walking by like a guy getting mugged. He's like, "Fuck! Like I should be stopping this," but he doesn't. And then finally, when he sees the burning building, he's like, "I've had enough. Like I can't just." And like, that goes back to if you have this great power, you have the responsibility to use it, because now all these bad things are happening. You could stop it. And you should stop it if you can. Right. That's the right thing to do. Him coming. And that's why I love. Sorry, I don't mean.
No, go ahead.
That's why I love Spider-Man 2. It has the most, the Aunt May scene. It might be my favorite when she's giving him that speech in her backyard. Might be my favorite scene of the whole trilogy. Because it's so goddamn powerful. It's so true.
And especially when the little kid comes along and she's like, he looks up to you.
Yeah, like people need.
He keeps asking, when is Spider-Man?
Yeah, like back? People need that shining example of justice, and that's what Spider-Man was, and that's what.
I think at that point, Aunt May knew that he was Spider-Man.
Yeah, 100%.
She knew.
Yeah, because she's laying it on really hard with him. If she doesn't think he's Spider-Man, for all she knows, he's just like down on his luck, maybe, or like these things aren't working out in his personal life. But giving up Spider-Man is like a big deal. So if she doesn't know that he's Spider-Man, she's just laying it on real hard. So I think she is. But yeah, Spider-Man 2, it's just the train scene. I mean, the fact that the train scene, which is like the final fight of the film, that's like a 3-act fight.
Yeah.
It starts on the clock tower.
Yep.
Then it goes to the air, and then they're on the train, and then the first act is the clock tower, the second act is the train, and then the third act is when he saves the train. And that God, Jesus moment when the kids come to him and they're like, we won't tell anybody.
Right.
But
right.
It's
the kid
just,
gives him his mask back.
Like that's a good scene because the New Yorkers, like, they're just like, this kid's just a kid. Like,
yeah.
Like, and these are regular people. These aren't like, the 1%ers. These are just like the average New Yorkers. And they respect they have for what Spider-Man did, saving their life. Like,
exactly.
They're not gonna blow his secret. But the fact that they say he's just a kid, like older than my son, like it's powerful, man.
I think like another thing that makes that movie great, like you said, besides like the battle that he has within himself and overcoming, which all superheroes need to do, is overcome these battles within themselves. It brought us this really cool introduction to Lizard. If you didn't notice it, he was going to be the Lizard. College professor had one arm, so it shows you that he was practicing, his arm growing back, regeneration of his arm. Yeah. He was messing around with that, and that's actually how Lizard comes to be. Right. I just wish that they would have brought that back maybe in the third film.
Yeah, I think they were planning on bringing him because, like I said, I think they were supposed to have a 6-picture deal. Yeah, they only did 3. I think Vulture was going to be in the 4th. Mysterio was going to be in there, and Lizard was going to be in there. That would be the Sinister Six.
They were also going to bring MJ's fiance was going to be a villain.
Really?
Yeah,
what was he going to
become? He was going to be.
Wait, Jonah's son?
Jonah's son if you look at his background and his story, being an astronaut and going on the moon and things like that, I think they wanted to make him like the villain that's the wolf.
The werewolf?
It was kind of like a werewolf.
Really?
Which kind of connects it.
Wait, like Morbius?
I don't think it was Morbius. We'll have to look it up.
I didn't even know that.
But yeah, they were going to bring him back.
That's
too.
Cool.
But
he really did him fat.
They were going to bring him into it.
He kind of did him dirty in that movie.
Yeah. But
that's interesting.
So like it's crazy that how that movie ended with MJ leaving him at the altar.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. That's a great scene. You know why I love that scene so much? Because all movie Peter Parker just he didn't get anything. Everything, his life just sucked, like I said. And the final scene of the movie, he finally gets, like when he's fighting Doc Ock in the warehouse and she's unmasked and she finally sees who he is and understands, like, oh, that's why he can never make it to my show. And that's why he's not there for me as much, because he's Spider-Man. Like, they don't even have to say anything. It's just like they look at each other and everything, you just know exactly what they're feeling.
So before I cut you off, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but that character that John Jameson plays is called the Man-Wolf.
Man-Wolf. He must be like a more obscure rogue.
Yeah, he wasn't very popular in the comics, but I do remember him popping up in the show.
I could see them bringing him back for like a small. Maybe he Spider-Man takes him out really quickly or something. But maybe not like leading man.
That's who he was supposed to be.
That's cool. Interesting. I didn't know that. But yeah, that final scene, and then MJ's like, I want you. We should. Why be half alive? And we can both. And he finally gets something, but then he's like, I gotta go. And she just looks out the window and she's like, it was this, because the lighting of that scene was very like this golden effect of like finally his heavens are giving him this gift. And that golden like lighting is what we associate with Spider-Man a lot. There's a lot.
And he knew that they could never be together because Spider-Man has way too many enemies.
Yep. And responsibility.
Yeah.
She can't, and that's their problem in the third movie. He's just not there for her when she needs it. He can't be. But again, like, that when she's looking out the window, like right before that they had this beautiful kiss and they're like, oh, we're gonna be together, but finally, and then she's like, oh, now I'm alone again. It's like a Shining. Remember how The Shining ends,
right? With
the picture and he's been there the whole time,
right?
It's like that kind of ending where it's like a bittersweet, almost like oh, it's weird.
Another great film.
You know what I mean?
Another great film that we'll do an episode on.
But yeah, Spider-Man 2 is
yeah, Spider-Man 2.
It's ridiculous.
We're in agreement that it was the best of the trilogy.
Yes. And I think a lot of people hold that as like the upper echelon of.
To me, that was the best Spider-Man film that's been produced
Me
so
too.
far.
And that's a lot, and that's in large part not just due to the cast; it's due to the director. I mean, Raimi knows Spider-Man. He knows, just like the Russo brothers. Like they're comic book, they're nerds. Like Raimi, and that's why they made really good movies. But Raimi is a comic book nerd. He knows the character. He knew that I have to make this romantic. I have to make this like it has to be down to earth. It can't be like there's not too much sci-fi in the movie, like except for Venom in the third. That's like like there's aliens exist.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's pretty grounded. The villains are just normal people. They're all victims. None of the villains are just like evil mustache twirling villains, which they could have been for that time.
Absolutely.
Like that time, villains could have just been these evil douchebags or evil idiots. These villains are developed. They have something driving them, and they're victims. Like just like in the Nolan movies, like all the villains, like like they're not just evil. There's a reason for what they're doing. Like, and that makes it. Because again, if you're gonna make a good superhero movie, the villains have to be just as good as the antagonist, and the protagonist have to be equally as interesting and entertaining to watch. Because that makes for a better like emotional ending, or a better like I'm stopping you, but I don't want to like kill you. Like I want to help you, kind of thing. Where it's like just like in Spider-Man 2, he tries to save him, and he doesn't try to beat Doc Ock.
That's the point.
He's like
that
Dr.
I wanted.
Octavius, and he gets to him.
Yeah,
and they have that thing where callback where he's like, you once told me that knowledge was a gift, and he's for the betterment of mankind. It's a privilege. And then he repeats what Aunt May said to him earlier, when he was like, sometimes we have to be steady and put off our dreams for what like put a hold on our dreams to do what's right. And it's really moving in the way he saves him, and then that forces Ock to like, I'm gonna die a good guy. I'm gonna save it. He's the hero.
He said, "I will not die a monster."
Yeah, I'm not that monster. And which brings me back to if he comes back, is like that guy,
is
or
he,
I don't
is
know.
he the
but
monster?
Yeah,
or
it could be any. I don't know. We'll have to see. But Spider-Man 2, yeah, the way it ends, and there's also a lot of good shots in it. It's really good. It's just a good fucking movie. It's a masterclass on how to like do Spider-Man. Again, you got to get Peter Parker right. You have to get Peter. If you don't, if he's not likable or he's not good, the movie, he has to be likable. He has to be relatable, because that's what Stan Lee pictured. That's what he pictured when he created Spider-Man. A guy who has money troubles, a guy who can't get girls, or he has trouble finding relationships, or he's shy. But he's really gifted. He's this genius, and it's like he's just a kid. He's just a kid or a young man.
Right.
Even in the depictions of him that are sort of older and more mature, more cocky, whatever, like he's still a kid. He's what kids and young adults can relate to the most. Batman's old and grumpy. Superman, we can't be Superman. We can't be Captain America or Iron Man. We can all be Spider-Man in a way. I know that we obviously can't swing from buildings, but like Spider-Man just doing the right thing and just getting back up when you fall, which is, they did that great scene in Homecoming where the vulture has him like pinned down onto the building, right?
Yeah.
And he lifts the building off. That's a homage to one of the like Spidey's best. I forget what the issue is, but where he's like lifting the building or the train off of his back. It's like massive. It's crazy, but like his just sheer force of will is what puts that building up in the air. Like they did that, and I love how they did that. They kind of did it in Spider-Man 2 with the train, because that's not that'd be crazy impossible to like have the strength to stop a moving train, and then he basically passes out after he almost dies.
Yeah, it took all of his strength to stop.
Yeah, just a great movie. You want to talk about the third movie?
Yeah, I want to jump into the third now, since I mean,
do you have anything else to add about this?
No. I think we kind of hit all the marks about it. Like I said, for me, the best part about that film was just showing the reality of what it takes to be a superhero, and the things that you have to sacrifice, the things that you have to give up. Like you have to be like kind of like Captain America, like a pure like jumping on the grenade to save the comrades. Like it's your superhero is not based off of strength; it's based off of the character that you present. The heart. Yeah, it's exactly. It's like, are they a good person? Or do they have to become a good person? Like, right. Exactly. And so, like, for Raimi to have all of these movies lined up, that you have all these villains that you're setting up to eventually put into these films, and for you to stop short and for you to have to end your filming and have to stop production of future movies, it has to do with failure of a movie. And if there's any failure in the Raimi trilogy, it is definitely Spider-Man 3.
Oh yeah.
I just think it missed its mark, and a lot of people didn't like it based off of the story and everything. I like that they finally brought in Venom.
Yeah, it was cool.
But I just think the way that they went about it just wasn't there, and they really did just miss their mark. I mean, you want to give me your thoughts?
There are a lot of issues with the film. Let's start with the things I like first, because there are some really good things about Spider-Man 3 that often get overlooked, or they just don't really see the light of day because people just don't focus on them, whatever. First of all, and I mentioned this before, but that movie is all about forgiveness. Like, that movie is the most mature Spider-Man we've ever got, because when he gets the suit, it's basically a symbolic of addiction. He turns to the suit when he has problems. He turns to the suit when he has to stop the Sandman after he finds out that he killed Uncle Ben. Like, he turns to the suit, and when he has to deal with things, he turns to the suit, and then that's why when he finally goes back to his red, white, and blue suit, or the red and blue suit, it's like this. He got that sympathetic side. Because basically in that movie, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man becomes a victim of pride. Everything it's all about pride.
He was very gluttonous.
He's gluttonous. He's vile because he hits MJ. Like, the most vile thing he could do is hit MJ. That's the love of his life. Like that, and that's kind of the final straw where he's just like, oh my God, look at what I've done. It kind of makes him realize, like, this is hurting everybody. And that's and all the things that come before that. He basically kills the Sandman, or he thinks that he killed, and he's okay with that. That's not a good thing, because that's not Spider-Man. Spider-Man, in other words, he loses the Uncle Ben tenderness, sympathetic hero that he did when he tried to save Ock.
Right.
You know what I mean?
When he found out that Sandman, Sandman portrayed by...
He's rage. He's full of rage.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Thomas Hayden Church did a great job at playing Sandman, and I think, once he found out that Sandman was the one that killed Uncle Ben, that's when he got that revenge, that rage built inside him.
In the first one, just like how
exactly, and it didn't help that he had the symbiote suit.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
That fed the fire.
Exactly, that made him be extra violent. Like when he holds Flint Marco's head at the train. If you notice, he's losing teeth.
Yeah.
Like if you slow that footage down of him bashing his head into the moving train, you can see like teeth flying out.
Oh yeah.
That's the sand. It's incredible, and most people would probably not catch that. I didn't catch it until I watched it a bunch of times. But anyway, yeah. And then all the Thomas Hayden Church was great as Venom. Not as Venom, as Flint Marko. I honestly think we'll get to the issues in a second. Let me just finish what I really like about it. When all the shit's hitting the fan, when he eventually does the most hurtful thing he could do, which is hit MJ, and he goes home, Aunt May comes to him. She's the only one. Only she can like help Peter get out of this addiction, this pride, and he can't even face her. That's the beauty of that filmmaking in that scene. He can't even face her. She's blurry in the background. It's in the foreground. It's Peter and his face, his eyes closed, just unable to face Aunt May and tell her what he's done until he does, and she says to him, "Well, you've got to forgive yourself. That's the only way to obviously you have to make amends to the people you've hurt, but you start by forgiving yourself." And then it ends with him forgiving the Sandman, and it ends with that beautiful moment of them dancing, him and MJ. It's like that's how they ended the third, instead of not on a heroic swing, but on a quiet, tender moment between these two characters who we know and who have gone through this incredible rough patch, but are now finally coming back to each other. It's kind of beautiful, and that's what I love about that movie. Amidst all the problems, we'll never get a mature take of like addiction and pride. You'll never get another Spider-Man movie like that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's a very mature take on Spider-Man.
And to pick up on that, when he does realize that it is the suit that's causing him more gluttony, more rage, when he knows, he comes to that realization that this isn't the Spider-Man that he was meant to be. This isn't the person that he is. he does fight off the symbiote. You know, he fights the symbiote.
That's another comic book moment come to life.
It's a great scene.
Yeah, I love
it's a comic book scene brought to life, and him, having that battle. That's another example of him having that battle within himself.
Right.
And overcoming that bad part of his life. He was able to rip off the symbiote
off his body. And think about it. The reason why the Venom symbiote didn't turn Peter into an absolute monster is because Peter has that sympathy and that Spider-Man side to him.
Where Eddie
falls on Eddie, who's just full of greed and malice and hate. Like when he literally asked God to kill Peter Parker, which is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
it falls on someone like him, and it turns him into like this, you know what I mean? Like, and that's another thing I like about that movie. Topher Grace. He's great.
Yeah, he's good.
He's Peter Parker if he were cocky and greedy and not Spider-Man. It's like we haven't really seen that in these movies yet. Where like someone like Peter, but like without the heroic side.
Yeah, he was anti-Peter Parker.
Exactly. Yeah, and the worst thing that Eddie did, the worst part of his character is that when he gets fired and everything, yeah, sure, it was embarrassing, but he thinks that he's the victim. Like, he got fired, he lost his girlfriend, whatever, when really he did it all to himself. And it's like, he thinks that he's the victim. That's important because, again, that just shows you his real character of just this terrible person. Like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's how when the symbiote falls on him and he really just goes on this revenge, he amps up Flint Marko, who probably didn't even care about Spider-Man. Probably would have never gone to fight, because after he basically kills him in the sewer, Flint Marko would probably never go back to see him again. He'd probably just be like, all right, I'm just going to go back to finding money for my daughter and avoiding him at all costs. But Venom comes back, or Eddie Brock comes back, and he amps him up. He's like, he killed Peter. You know what I mean? Like, it's just... And that's the addiction. That's like the symbiote representing addiction or some kind of bad thing in your life. That's
the
hurting
symbiote,
you and others.
Yeah, the symbiote fed off of anarchy and chaos and anger, which Topher Grace as Eddie Brock had.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I also really liked the actual final form of Hobgoblin, James Franco did a great job.
Is all like damaged.
Yeah, they did. It showed him, giving out of the same thing that the symbiote was giving.
Yeah.
Like he had that menacing spirit from his father instilled in him after throwing the knife at the mirror and everything. That is his own symbiote. That's his symbiote is his father's death. And finally him in the third movie accepting his father's death and forgiving Peter, that was a great closing to his character.
Yeah, I agree.
But going off of now the negative things.
But is there anything else positive that I didn't mention that you want to say before we get to the negatives?
I think we hit all the marks there.
Yeah.
Because there's not too much great about the film.
Yeah, it's not. And it's such a shame because what came before it was so great, and to see it, and that's when you could tell like the studio just got too involved. Like, because Raimi's first two pictures were like, that's also him continuing his Spider-Man story. He's not going to drop the ball like that. He knew exactly what the fans wanted. He knew what worked. All he had to do was keep that up, and we would have loved it. But the studio, whoever told
Sony
him,
Productions,
put Venom in there. And that leads us to the problems. The first and most glaring issue is the inclusion of 3 villains. It's too much. There's no need for 3 antagonists, and it makes the film
which is very interesting for this new movie coming out. Like you just said, 3 is a lot of villains. Now they're bringing in 6.
Dude, imagine just bringing 2 other Spider-Men into the movie. Now imagine bringing in 4, 5, 6 other villains. It's like, and that's another thing I'm worried about with this movie. Is like it's gonna be overcrowded. It has to be because there's just too many.
Right.
Just like with the Eternals, which a problem that I thought was just there's too many Eternals. There's 10 main characters.
Right.
I mean, there's only like 4 or 5 that are really important, but there's 10 of them to like get behind and see their backstory. Just like with the Amazing Spider-Man 2, there's 3 villains in that movie, but they're all just fighting for the spotlight, and that's a problem with Spider-Man 3, which I don't know why they didn't learn from that more and avoided that with the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and with this movie coming up, you'd think that they kind of learned. But I'm still gonna see it. I hope they do something cool with it. But there's gonna be a lot of villains. There's gonna be a lot of characters.
So a lot of characters. So hopefully they find a way to give each of them enough time to show the character and show which direction they're going to go with it. But
now, you know what? I don't mean to cut you off, but you know how if they're bringing back these iconic characters that we obviously all know, we know we know them already. I hope that the film doesn't take advantage of that and just be like, all right, well, they know, so we don't have to like give them that much time to shine.
Right.
No, if you're going to bring back Doc Ock, you need to let him shine. If you're going to bring back Electro and the Lizard, who are pretty bad villains in my opinion, like at least give them that redemption. Let them have their redemption. Since if you're going to bring them back, they got to be good.
Yeah.
You're not bringing back a shitty, because those are shitty villains. They did not do well commercially, box office wise, anything. So if you're going to bring them back, they need to be better.
Which is why the Amazing Spider-Man movies didn't do as well.
Yeah.
Their villain, development was not
Too many
there.
characters.
But going into the negative things about Spider-Man 3, I like you said, I think the story missed its mark.
Yep.
I just think production had too much involvement. To me, it did not hit the same mark as the first and second.
It didn't. And then of course the another big issue is the dancing montage, that jazz number, which again, like I don't mind it because I know why they did it.
Right.
When the reason is because it's supposed to be a juxtaposition to the raindrops are falling on my head sequence in the first one, where he's this gleeful, nerdy, because that's how Peter Parker is. Without Spider-Man, he's this nerdy, kind of like clumsy. He's not cool. He's not cool. He's kind of a nerd. He's kind of an outcast. Like, you know what I mean? So when he's Peter Parker and he's finally free, quote unquote, in Spider-Man 2, he's just walking around with his glasses all goofy, falls,
eats a hot dog,
eats the hot dog, which is another fucking meme in and of itself. Same thing in Spider-Man 3 when he thinks he's cool and he gets this symbiote with his dyes his hair and his whatever. He thinks the cool thing to do is walking down the street, dancing
with finger guns,
all the pelvic thrusts,
everywhere.
everything. It's fucking ridiculous, but it's pure Sam Raimi. Like if you think about it again, and I have problems with it because it's not good. It really fucks with the movie. But again, when I watch it, like it takes it down a notch. If that wasn't in there, it'd be a lot better. Right. But again, I understand why it's there. I understand what Raimi was trying, with what he was given and what he had to, all the things he had to include. He still tried to stay true and try to tell the best story he could. But again, I know why he did that. But that's a big problem with the movie. It's kind of ridiculous. But the other parts of that montage where he's like flirting with Betty Brant and he's like demanding the staff job from Jonah, like, those are good. Those are fine moments because that's just showing this cocky, pride-filled Peter Parker, this snarky dude. Now he's hitting on Betty Brant. He's all creepy. It's like that's not Peter Parker, and you can tell. And that's and again, just to bring back something I like before because we're moving into the negatives, the opening sequences of all the movies, like that, how like each movie you kind of like see the moments of the last movie to kind of keep up with, also prepare you for the new story that you're about to see, and how in the third one specifically, the effects they did with like when like the theme starts, of course they're going to start with Uncle Ben, they're going to start with Doc Ock, and you've seen already, and then they're going to move into the new Venom, or they're going to move into the Marvel, and that's when Sand and Venom kind of effects take over the title sequence. I thought that was really, I appreciate those, like, because that makes the films feel like they're going to be these like grand movies, because there's no cinematic universe like with the Marvel. There's no end credit scene or mid credit scene. Like, these have to feel like these are films that came out once every few years. I think the first one came out in 2002, and the next one in 2004, the next one in 2007. So those are a couple of years between each picture. It's like, now we have to prepare you for what you're about to see, but also remind you of what you've already seen in this very stylish way. You know what I mean? Right. So I really appreciate those. We can move on to the next.
I think I feel like we kind of went over what we didn't like about it. I think now we can kind of just talk about what our hopes are for the new film. Like I said, you're bringing back all these characters, these beloved villains. And, I like you said, and like I said, I just hope that they get the time that they need in the film, because there's a lot of characters that have to be brought into this film. And each of them needs to have their own time where we can see the type of character that we're getting, like how the actors portray it differently than the first time around. Because that's like when you look at the preview, you see that they have costume changes, their demeanor is a little different. So
you talk about the villains, right?
Yeah.
He even has the Stark armor.
He has Stark armor
on his arms. It's like that's when I say MCUify. I hope I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But real quick, I just hope that it's the Alfred Molina Doc Ock that we already know. It's not this MCU just like cracking jokes and different. You can tell when it's written by someone. I think Bill Pope. Is he the one that wrote Spider-Man 2? I'm not sure. Or Alan Sargent, I think, wrote it.
It is one of the two.
It was one of the two, I believe. Keep that. Give me that writing, and then when it's written by someone like someone else, you can tell. I mean, it can easily just be written by different people, and therefore the movie just feels different. The writing is good. Writing is so important. It might be because it's like the first thing before you do anything, or the effects come in, or the music, or anything's really developed. It's the writing, it's the screenplay, it's the story. Like for example, Joker. The composer, I can't pronounce her name. She composed that haunting score for Joker before the film was filmed.
Which is another movie that we'll get into in a different episode.
But that's how good the screenplay was. She understood exactly the darkness they were going for, and she created this haunting score. So that's how important writing is. And with a movie like this coming out, again, Far From Home, Homecoming, they're just I didn't hate them. I didn't dislike them even. I didn't get like, oh my god, Spider-Man 2 vibes. I didn't get this. That wasn't my favorite depiction. Although there are things I like. There's things I dislike too. So there are things I like.
We'll definitely talk about that in a different episode. Mm-hmm. But I think, like I said, something to look forward to is the character adaptation, and, seeing how these actors change it from the first time where they filmed it. And obviously there's huge costume changes. Like I know that you probably saw in the preview, Sandman has a different look.
Yep. They all have different looks. Electro looks different.
Yeah, Electro.
They kind of look more comic.
Electro doesn't have that stupid Smurf blue.
So
even Green Goblin has a new look. If you see that little snippet of him gliding by, so it's interesting to see if costume has any impact on how the character is portrayed too. I wonder
because I sort of, not to bring it back to him all the time, but he kind of like when he robbed the bank in the second movie. He was like wearing like this trench coat and the hat. Like it kind of looks like that's what he's wearing in that first trailer shot. But you know how the MCU is. They cut their trailers. They're definitely not like what you're seeing is probably not what's actually happening. It's probably altered in some way. He might not even be talking to Tom Holland Peter. He might be talking to Tobey Maguire Peter. That's what I'm so interested to see, but also so scared to see. Because I just know the MCU. Unfortunately, they have really good movies. They do, but the amount of like mediocre movies, which is worse than being bad in my opinion, are equal. I think there's equal amount of good ones to bad ones. That's not the best ratio,
right?
So their track record is leading me to believe that they're gonna fuck this up a little bit. And I hate to be cynical. I'm trying not to be cynical, but I just know that there's gonna be something I don't like. There's gonna be something that they change it. So what I hope, like we kind of already said, we just hope that they stay true to their original writing, original characters, their goals, and when they're brought into this story, it better mean something. It better be for a reason. It better not just be for pure fan service, because that's not a good enough reason to bring them back, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, we just hope that, like you said, that everything is true to what they were, and well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
So, thank you everyone for listening. We're going to be putting out some more episodes in the future
as soon as we can.
If you enjoyed the episode and you liked what you heard, feel free to subscribe, comment, like on the video.
Yeah, please.
Once again, thank you.
Let us know what else we can talk about, or any suggestions you guys might have for us. Like we said in the beginning, we're fans of all kinds of films, all kind of media. So whatever it is, if we see it, we'll talk about it. So yes, thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it.
And if you have any questions, comments, if you like Alex said, if you want to If you want us to go over any topics for future videos, you can comment on our YouTube page at 914 Cinema, and you can email us at 914 cinema914@gmail.com. That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Catch you next time. Cinema 914.
Cinema 914.